Dearly beloved geeks, we have gathered here to talk about this thing called Batman Fear State. Yeah. Fear State in chronological order. Actually, yeah, okay, so like that's only part of this here. We're really going to really unload this thing. I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, though I now understand what all of the people were saying when they're hemming and hawing about Batman, DC, and events, because this is the first one I've experienced with DC, to being completely honest with you. Trying to read everything having to do with it, not in trade form, but in floppy form. And eek. There are a number of issues and everything here in play, and I'm gonna try and do what I can to unload it all for y'all. Okay, so I don't want to sound like a complete Debbie Downer in regards to this, because there were elements and they were good things about Fear State. Honestly, there were. But yeah, we'll get to it. I'm eventually going to be positive. Yeah, sure. Okay, so Fear State was a recent Batman event for DC, and it basically was promised to us as to be a major, major event involving the villain Scarecrow, which would be why it's called Fear State. So, the problem is, did it really deliver on its promises? We'll talk about that. Did any of it make sense? We'll talk about that too. Was any of it good? We'll go there. You know, was it bad? Well, we'll go there too. What kind of things outside of the story could have affected the story? We'll go into that too. And there were moments that I absolutely loved, elements that I absolutely loved, and there's definitely things that made me freaking face palm. Okay. We're gonna unload all those things, and when it comes right down to it, in the description below, I'm going to be providing you with a chronological, best I can, chronological order in which to read Batman Fear State, all the titles in chronological order. I'm going to do that for you guys because I'm a peach. I'm a peach. I'm going to do that for y'all. Just in case you're one of these people that was sitting there like, okay, I'm going to let all this stuff come in and I'm going to put it all in a stack and I'm going to read it in the order that I received it when everything's over with. I'm sure there's people out there like that. The problem is if you're reading it in that order, it's not going to work out too well for you. There is a chronological order issue. There's also an issue involving storyline, and we'll get to that. So, the last and ultimate thing that we are going to talk about is who was the real MVP, most valuable player of Fear State. And I'm going to tell you, there's a tie. My own personal opinion, you don't have to subscribe to that opinion. You don't have to, agree with me. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to support my opinion because it's mine, and I really just care about it because it's mine. So let's get into this. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna say right now, you are in for a ride. And if you're like me and you found some elements of it to be really good and some more than needed for it to be bad, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. The officially unofficial geek, Harley Quinn, that's me. I'm here for you. So, one of the first things I really want to talk about, guys, is a number of issues that really have no place in Fear State. Or they have a more general placing in the chronological order. And the chronological order that's going to be listed down below, you have to pay attention to it because first I'm going to list the issues that either can be read wherever in the storyline or really don't fit into the storyline, because that is a problem as well. So we're definitely going to do some stuff like that. This is basically the stack that we've got here that are like that. Now, the rest of it, that was that. This is the rest of what is generally considered Fear State, plus a couple extras that kind of apply to understanding certain things that are going on in the issues that you have. So here we go. So did it make sense? Did it make sense? Okay. Well, I think overall the story did suffer from not having enough eyes on the continuity. Quite frankly, there are items that I'm going to talk about more in the whole general was it bad, what was bad section. But yeah, there are general overall continuity issues. At the beginning of the whole story, character takes over Oracle system, is referred to as the anti-Oracle. Then in I Am Batman, it changes. Now it changes to the Seer. Now you can argue that because Jace Fox's Batman is not in communication with Oracle and all them, that he came up with his own name for what they were dealing with and what he was noticing. So that is a possibility. That actually makes sense, but you can see where some people might be kind of confused by that. There are, like I mentioned, there are issues that are clearly marked Fear State, and I do have notes here, so if you see me looking somewhere else besides the camera or just off in the distance, you'll know that I'm looking at my notes here on the screen. There are issues that are clearly marked Fear State to indicate that they need to be bought to understand the full scope of Fear State that honestly I think do not belong. For instance, Detective Comics. Detective Comics do not belong. And I'll get into that more later in the video. Okay. Put a pin in that one. We'll get back to that. And we'll talk about how Detective Comics had the label of Fear Street. This is not R.L. Stine, Carrie. Fear State that actually really do not fit within the storyline. Another thing, the Urban Legend storyline that were within Fear State as a tie-in involving Batwoman and Red Alice were also kind of confusing in regards to its overall importance involving moving the story forward. There wasn't much of an importance or stakes in regards to the overall scope of the tie-ins that were a part of the Batman Urban Legends issues. While they weren't bad, they weren't bad. It was to assess the idea of it being a Fear State tie-in and then have it being confusing as to how it does tie in to the scope of everything going on. That's kind of what we're going with right now when we're asking ourselves, does it make sense? Yeah. There were items about different continuity, and the thing is that was one of the major things that kept it from making sense, because you would have certain things happen that either re-happened in another issue, or certain things that would happen in a tie-in, and then there'd be actually absolutely nothing going on involving that situation in a related tie-in. Okay, and we're going to talk about that more later. So this is the kind of situation that we're going into. We have continuity issues. We have timing issues. We have chronological issues, which is one of the things that I'm really stressing. That, like I said, I'm going to put what I believe is the chronological order of Fear State down in the description to help you guys out. And you can let me know what you think of my order, what you think of my reasoning for everything here. So, okay, so now that I kind of gave you a preamble to the bad of Fear State, let me go ahead and talk to you about what worked. What worked in Fear State. There were good elements. I'm going to go ahead and talk about all those before I get too annoyed. There were standout issues, definitely, with the writing. Let me tell you, writing, art stand out in certain issues of this story. The Batman Secret Files for the Gardener, Molly, and Peacekeeper 1 provided not only wonderful origin stories that complemented the character and the action wonderfully, but artists from the Gardener story and Molly story were standouts for different reasons. There's definitely, like, just even looking at the cover of the Gardener special, like, this is the kind of art that you were getting throughout the whole thing. Ward, the cover done by Christian, and a lot of the art, Christian Ward. Fantastic. You had a lot of, with Miracle Molly, you had, let me just pull that out right now. You had this really cool, gritty 90s Vertigo kind of flavor with the art, which was done by Danny, who you'll also know is doing the Arkham Order of the World title, and is just killing it. So that's one thing. There's definitely standouts story-wise in writing, standout story-wise in art. Jorge Jimenez, Dan Mora, these guys are killing it involving their art in these issues. If anything, it was just a beauty to behold, the art and all that in some of these issues, some of these double page panels and this action art in some of these issues, and it was just fantastic. They definitely outdid themselves. They're some of the better artists working in DC right now are these people. Really, really just beauty to behold. I loved it. There are tie-ins that, as I mentioned in my weekly reviews throughout this whole process, understood the assignment. Okay. of writing an event. People like Ron V with Catwoman participated seemingly seamlessly with the main Batman title, and were still able to move forward certain aspects of their story that they weren't completely pushing aside the overall feeling and feel of what Catwoman Selena Kyle was going through at that time period. Yes, the whole Father Valley thing got kind of pushed to the side, but you can still see elements of what she's dealing with and what she's trying to figure out in her life worked into Fear State. So you don't really miss that there. It's this is, you know, Selena's journey of acceptance and discovery. And while, yes, the Father Valley stuff had to be kind of pushed to the side, seemingly, put on the back burner, they were able to nestle that overall story of Selena grappling with her past and who she will be now and in the future. They were able to work that whole idea into Fear State beautifully. And you do see that, especially tying everything up, especially in that last Catwoman issue of the event right at the end. It was one of my favorite issues of that week when I read it. For real. It was just wonderful. Um, another issue involving understanding the assignment really has to go to Tom Taylor in regards to Nightwing. Um, Especially that issue where they turned the tables and they had the story kind of told through the eyes of Batgirl Prime Barbara Gordon. It told an emotional and beautiful story about her perseverance and how in fear, while under the effect of fear toxin, she and Nightwing found their hope and love in each other was their greatest asset. Um, which we're kind of gonna touch on that a little bit later, and involving a couple other characters. So put a pin in that as well. Um, so what was bad about Fear State? Now that we talked about the good, we've got the good art, some of the good storylines. What Another thing I want to add to, the good of everything is just basically anything having to do with the Poison Ivy, Queen Ivy portion of the story. There was Catwoman moments, and Harley Quinn moments, where it was just plain fantastic moments. Like the moment in Catwoman where they are fighting the White Witch and the magistrate and everything like that, and um, Clayface and his second chance crew. They're like, man, we need a plan B because what's going on here? And all of a sudden, there's like a crack of a bat, and it is Harley Quinn, and her bat says Plan B on it. And it's just that issue alone is like really cool because that's when Harley Quinn and the Gardeners show up to help Selena Kyle and Catwoman in the alley town and her strays. Along with the Second Chance crew, which is head up by I've been calling them the Second Chance crew, but by Clayface, which is basically a group of villains that are looking to kind of go straight and have a second chance at life. Um, so they've kind of gone to Selena for like a little bit of guidance and possible help to kind of, you know, do that to facilitate that change for themselves. Um, so just basically anything having to do with Catwoman was absolute standouts. Anything having to do with the Poison Ivy story, early on in the issues where Ghostmaker is telling Batman about Harley and Gardner's idea about how they're going to fix the whole Poison Ivy situation, which, if you're reading, Poison Ivy has basically kind of worked her roots into below Gotham, and so that if you anger her enough, she could totally no man's land this place, once again. Um, so Ghostmaker is telling Batman that Harley and the gardener have a plan on how to fix that situation. And he's not very, Ghostmaker is not very, uh, um, what's what I'm looking for? He's not very optimistic about the plan. And Harley's like, hey, you know what? I have got the best plan. We got the best plan, and it's going to work so well. You're going to make me a Robin. And it really is the best plan. It's, we're going to talk about that, a little bit later in the video, like put a pin in that one, because the plan actually like really works. So I know that Harley should, be waiting for that costume. Um, she'll never get it, but you know what? She's just like, my plan is so good, you're going to make me a Robin. And you know what? Her plan was absolutely brilliant. So, there's elements that you get and everything good that you get from all these characters were present in the story. And so that definitely had it going for it. The problem that we're running into is, one, the continuity, the chronological order issue. The chronological order, let's go ahead and talk about that first, because that is I believe, a big issue in reading and enjoying Fear State, because, well, I don't know what it was about scheduling, or we had the COVID paper shortage, or issues with delivery, but we had a lot of things happening out of order. The most recent example of this, and you can tell, I can tell you that the whole Fear State storyline was riddled with items like this, okay, where maybe the timing should have changed so that something else was released and given to the public prior to something else, where the normal release dates for certain books would happen in a way, and they didn't alter from that plan, thus to make it more streamlined, so to speak. So you have the most recent situation from within Fear State to use as an example would be the last major Batman issue of Fear State. That would be, let me pull that out for y'all. That would be Batman number Batman 117. 117 was released prior to Catwoman 37 and Harley Quinn 9. Now, why is this a problem, you may ask? Well, here's the reason why this is a problem, because basically you're seeing in Batman 117, you are seeing what happened after the goings on of Catwoman 37 and Harley Quinn 9. Basically, what's happening is the Batman 117 released, and then the next week, Catwoman 37 and Harley Quinn number 9 released. And what happens is you have in Batman 117, you basically have the end of the major part of the story. Okay? And it involves knowing that Poison Ivy has come back together again. She's rejoined with herself. It knows that, Miracle Molly didn't press the button. It knows that the Riddler didn't succeed in trying to outsmart Selena Kyle. It basically means that we know that regardless of what could possibly happen in Catwoman number 37 and Harley Quinn 9, that Poison Ivy is won again. Fear State is over. Yeah. But the next week we release Catwoman 37 and Harley Quinn 9, which basically tells us how we get to what we already know. That Fear State is over. Poison Ivy is won again. And Catwoman has outsmarted the Riddler and the Penguin once again. Once again, folks. Once again, she outsmarted them. Okay, so just to rub that in. Selena Kyle outsmarted the Penguin and the Riddler once again. Anyways, she's just so badass. I love that fucking character, and I love how he's written her. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. So the chronological order thing obviously is a problem. And this is that one example that I gave you is not the only problem with the chronological order. Let's talk about Detective Comics, shall we? Detective Comics had 3 issues attached to, well, I say attached to Fear State, but the problem is were they really? So we have 1043, 1044, and 1045. I believe these are all 8 covers, yes. So we have 3 issues, okay, of Batman Detective Comics that have the Fear State, Fear State, Fear State. The only problem with this is it has absolutely nothing to do with Fear State. It's a continuation of the Hugh Vile storyline. The Parasite, Hugh Vile, all that stuff. If you've been reading Detective Comics, you know about it. Is basically an offshoot off of the whole Sarah Worth death, Mr. Worth attacking Batman and Bruce Wayne numerous times, blowing up things and all that. It's a continuation of the story. The only connection, seemingly whatsoever, to Fear State in Detective Comics 1043, 1044, 1045 is that the magistrate is there. That's it. And in Fear State, the villain is not Hugh Vile. The villain that we've been promised is Scarecrow. Scarecrow. Don't think he appears anywhere in any of these. Which, by the way, for an event that was touted to us as number 1 being a Scarecrow-centered event, there wasn't a lot of Scarecrow. That's another problem with it. Not a lot of Scarecrow, folks. Not a lot of Scarecrow. So if you want to be really real about this, if you were to not tell someone what was promised to the fans prior to this event starting, if you were to not let someone know that and you wanted them to read all this and then tell you, okay, you've read Fear State. You've read it all. Who do you think was the ultimate big bad. So yeah, there was Scarecrow. You're going to get people that are going to say that there was Scarecrow in Fear State. Yes, there was. There was Scarecrow. There was Scarecrow doing stuff. But you're going to get people that are going to probably say, yeah, while Scarecrow was doing stuff, it was pretty secondary to the fact that Simon Saint, the Magistrate, Peacekeeper 1, and the Seer were really screwing things up for Gotham. Most of the violence that happens in Fear State Gotham is orchestrated by the Magistrate, Simon Saint's Magistrate. Most of the really scary stuff that happens in Gotham is orchestrated by the Seer. And if we want to talk about what was promised to us in regards to overall plot of Fear State, is that the Scarecrow was supposed to have all of Gotham in such a tizzy and pull it all off without using fear toxin. Now what happens? It seemed like every time we were turning around, Scarecrow was using fear toxin on somebody. Okay, so like he definitely used it on Barbara Gordon and Nightwing. Definitely used it on Peacekeeper 1. I think he used it on Batman. So major players there. He used fear toxin on. And there was never really anything really kind of centering into what was happening on a whole in Gotham until it came time to fix the problem. And at the end with Poison Ivy releasing pheromones to calm everyone down. Because, hey, look, shit, guys, we gotta calm Gotham down. Well, no one said Gotham was freaking out, guys, because nobody really covered that at all in any of the text until it came time for Poison Ivy to use her pheromones to calm everyone the fuck down. It was definitely not clear. But okay, fine. So why was everyone freaking out? Because Batman was dead. Okay. So basically we're talking about how the only person that created the pandemonium in Gotham to make people be all upset and freaking out because Batman was dead, if that's what you want to go with, if that's the idea you want to go with, the person that was causing all the problems in Gotham involving people being afraid, if you want to subscribe to the idea that people were afraid because Batman was dead, was not the Scarecrow. It was the Seer. It was Anti-Oracle. So right there, many different reasons right there why this was a pile of you know what. But I'm not even done, guys. I'm not even done. Let's talk about the continuity again. Let's talk about this because earlier I talked about people that understood the assignment involving writing in an event where you kind of have to kind of take a time out and focus on the event. There were a number of instances involving one particular tie-in. One particular tie-in series Harley Quinn. Guys, it pains me to say it. It pains me to say it because you know how much I've been loving the Harley Quinn issues lately. You know how much I've been loving Harley Quinn forever. Forever. But anything involving Harley Quinn in Fear State had the Harley Quinn title, not the Harley Quinn character. Harley Quinn character in a number of facets was absolutely on the goddamn mark, okay? But Harley Quinn title wise had problems. And it all has to do with continuity and moving plot forward of the event. Okay, here's the thing. Guys. You want to tell me why? One. You want to tell me why when her beloved Gotham is going to shit that Harley Quinn, one, her beloved Gotham's going to shit, and two, she now knows that her major goal right now is to find the other half of Poison Ivy's mind to rejoin Poison Ivy. You want to tell me how the heck can anyone see any sense whatsoever to send Harley Quinn on a camping trip? Yeah, guys, that happened in the middle of Fear State, when her beloved Gotham and her beloved Dr. Pamela Isley were hanging in the balance. Harley drops everything and goes on a camping trip. The woman that she has been pining for forever, pining for forever, pining, speaking to plants because she believes it brings her closer to Dr. Pamela Isley, to Poison Ivy, keeping a Poison Ivy potted plant in her apartment to talk to because it brings her closer to Ivy in her belief, and we've seen it pan out in issues, so it's not completely unfounded that Harley's doing this. So even if you want to, excuse the whole idea that Harley has this new resolve to protect Gotham and to prove herself as being worthy of being thought of as a protector of Gotham. Even if we can put that aside, and say, okay, maybe she's just like, I'm gonna go camping with my former clowns, because that's what she was doing. She was going camping with the former henchmen of the Joker that she's now working with to help them, therapy, that kind of thing, to get over having been in that position. Even if you were able to be like, okay, so this still makes sense. Even if you were able to explain that in relation to the idea of the event as a whole, okay, nothing should have been keeping Harley from the task of finding the other half of Ivy. It does not make sense. My personal opinion, it does not make sense to have Harley Quinn entrust that completely to someone she knows. She knows them. But to have her entrust that completely to someone else and have her go on a camping trip. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make sense. It does not make sense that Harley Quinn went on a camping trip in the middle of Fear State. It does not make sense. Do I think that the idea of Harley working with the former clowns, working with Kevin, whom I love Kevin, okay. Do I think that is a good storyline? Yes, I do. Not in the middle of Fear State, not in the middle of an event that has absolutely nothing to do with that storyline. Put it aside, put a pin in it, come back to it later, because it is a story that I enjoy. It is a story that should be given its proper due. To shoehorn work with the clowns, to shoehorn Kevin, who has become, in my opinion, a beloved character and sidekick to Harley Quinn, to shoehorn Kevin in with some Doctor Strange stuff. Doctor Strange, excuse me, not Doctor Strange, that's Marvel. Hugo Strange stuff. To shoehorn. I can't believe I did that. That was funny. Um, to shoehorn Kevin in with all that into something that it is not related at all. There is nothing having to do with Hugo Strange in Fear State at all, except for villains sometimes talk to each other, guys. Oh gosh. You know, I imagine they probably have like a Discord or some crap like that, and they probably talk to each other if they were real. Okay, but it does not make sense. Put a pin in it, come back to it, because it's a worthy story. It's a worthy story. Everybody else got to put pins in their worthy stories. Nightwing put a pin in Bloodhaven, okay? Rom V put a pin in the Father Valley storyline. Kevin and the Clown's redemption deserves better. It does. It deserves better. Put a pin in it. Come back to it. Because Harley Quinn going camping in the middle of Fear State while her precious Pammy hangs in the balance. It does not make sense. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Again, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. And then let's talk more about this continuity issue here and whether something makes sense or not. Okay, so you have Harley Quinn eventually goes and she joins Catwoman along with the gardener to basically in this quest to reconnect both halves of Poison Ivy. So in issues, and we'll talk about that involving in the description below, I did include the Harley Quinn annual and the issue right before Fear State of Harley Quinn because it gets into the idea of keepsake, which is another worthwhile storyline in Harley Quinn that was really entertaining in the annual Harley Quinn annual and all that. That keepsake ends up in Fear State. So keepsake ends up in Fear State with his generic villain crew. Okay, and it's the concept of keepsake being a Harley Quinn stalker, which is basically how it starts out in the Harley Quinn annual. It was a great issue. It's a great issue. It's a great concept. Keepsake should have had a pin put in it to come back to it after everything is done. Because here's what ends up happening. You have Harley Quinn and the gardener going to Alleytown, right? To help Selena Kyle out in the quest to reunite the two parts of her precious Pamela Isley. You have them eventually coming to Alleytown. So then you have crossover action. Yeah. Crossover action between what's happening in Harley Quinn and what's happening in Catwoman. Right? Okay, cool. That's great. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. Grand. Except in Harley Quinn, in the same action, in the same scenes, Keepsake shows up with his generic villain squad. And then you look at Catwoman issues, Keepsake's nowhere to be found. Happening at the same time, guys. Happening at the same time. Keepsake, another really awesome storyline, really entertaining in the annual, and so on and so forth, that should have put a pin in it. Don't bring it into Fear State. Why did you do that? No. Because you have Harley Quinn, and you have the story started continuing back and forth between those two, right? Right? And then just have things popping in and then being non-existent in the other one. It doesn't make sense. Stop it. Stop it. By the way, yes, I really do think the whole idea of Keepsake being a former henchman of the Joker, being, a Harley Quinn stalker, and developing his own squad of generic villains is really a fun story. I swear to you, it's really a fun story. I just think it had no place in Fear State because it couldn't be across the board. That's my viewpoint. Really cool concept. Had no place in Fear State whatsoever. I think I've talked enough about what's bad here, except for the fact that you have the genuine idea of this. The climax is anticlimactic. Okay, in the writing, the for anyone that did not read Future State, or any of the current Gotham Future State issues, we really needed more stakes. We needed more stakes to make it be one of these things where it's like, okay, we're not going to let this get there. We're not going to let this get to Future State. Because in the Batman issues, the Gotham issues of Future State, it all comes down to this. And I am actually, a side note, I am of an opinion that Future State could still become viable. We have to see what happens in the next few months involving the whole Arkham Tower thing, but that's a side note. We're not going to talk about that here. Not going to talk about that here because that's involving another event coming up. That's going to be in all of Detective Comics. There's going to be weekly Detective Comic issues coming up soon. That's going to be dealing with a whole other event. Dear God. Anywho, just... Okay. So was it bad? Yeah. Parts of it were bad. The stakes, definitely the stakes. If you can excuse any of the continuity issues, any of the things that just would pop up in one issue that were completely taken care of in the issue before, that all of a sudden are like rewound back again and like done over in a different way. That happened as well. Between Nightwing and Batman, involving the whole idea of capturing the airship, and then how all of that had played out completely in Nightwing, and then all of a sudden it's being captured again. I don't know. That's not as bad as the whole like Harley Quinn um, redemption of the clowns arc being shoehorned in, and the keepsake and generic villains thing being shoehorned in. That's not as bad as that. You can look at it as being like, hey, you know, when they show it in Batman, the whole airship thing with Barbara, Nightwing, Tim Drake, and the Batgirls, um, you can kind of be like, hey guys, if you missed it, you know, here's what just happened, you know. You can kind of excuse it with that whole idea. But just the whole idea that we were promised this, this, and this, and high stakes, changing Gotham forever, and we got 0. Do I think the paper shortage and COVID affected this whole situation? When it comes right down to it, I think that that's an excuse. It's an excuse, guys. If you know, when you have the text as an editor, you had the text of each issue, and you know this is how the story is progressing. This is how we have to release these titles. And you know this stuff months ahead of time. To have a story still release out of order. Because here's the thing, you could have released, for instance, with that example that I told you, you could have legit released Catwoman, okay, 1 week. The week that Batman actually was released, okay? Then you could have released Batman and Harley Quinn in the same week. That would have been fine. You're still releasing in the same kind of schedule, except you're switching around the titles. Because when you have Catwoman finishing up the action happening in Alleytown, you have Harley Quinn then progressing that action, returning Ivy back to Gotham, back to where she's supposed to be, to rejoin her with the other half of Ivy. And Batman finishes all that. That makes more sense. Do I blame the paper shortage? No. No. Because that could have been proper planning would have saved that whole idea. And you can't blame it when proper planning could have fixed the problem. And I'm not talking about planning for having more paper. I'm talking about release dates. Release dates, paying more attention to release dates would have fixed that problem. I think actually, you know, when I'm talking about it delivering on its promises, this is another thing I'm going to talk about that I think actually I've talked about. It didn't deliver on the promises. First off, we were told there was going to be next to no fear toxin. It felt like there was a lot of fear toxin. It felt like there was not enough Scarecrow. It felt like it was more Magistrate, Simon Saint, and the Seer / Anti-Oracle than Scarecrow. Let's see here. Yeah, so no, it did not deliver on its promises. Point blank. Did not. So let's talk about something that's happier, okay? What are some moments that I genuinely loved? Okay, guys, let me tell you something. Genuinely loved moments. Okay. Um, Harley Quinn, I mentioned this earlier, um, basically jumping up and saying, my plan is so good, you're going to make me a Robin. That's one of them. Um, there's some art in particular that happened in one of the Batman issues that happened in the Peacekeeper 1 versus Peacekeeper X issue. Off the hook. Just amazing. Um, I really did like the I Am Batman kind of taking, like, you can read the I Am Batman issues wherever the heck you want to. Um, because really, he's reacting to the fact that what he's hearing is Batman's dead, blah, 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 everything's going to heck. He reacts to that, and then he does his own thing. He's like, let everyone else deal with all this other stuff. I'm going to go ahead and help them out and deal with all this. I like the fact that really, I Am Batman, Jace Fox's Batman can pretty much fit wherever, as long as you are finishing the I Am Batman issues prior to the last Nightwing issue. Because the last Nightwing issue actually has them going up in the airship and taking down the airship, and then you find out that the seer was actually sitting in the airship and was evacuated. So we haven't seen the last of the seer of Anti-Oracle. So as long as you can fit in the I Am Batman titles wherever you want to, as long as it's one after anything that's an origin story, and two before Nightwing. Um, you can just basically shoehorn those in wherever you want to, because it's like, now for something different, we're going to check in with Jace Fox. That's basically what it is. And basically any moments involving the Insanity Collective and basically Molly. Molly is a great character. I really hope we get to see Molly again. I know that typically when writers stop writing for a particular title, a lot of the, you know, characters that they brought in, that they created, um, either go away completely or go away for a long time. Um, and I'm really hoping we do get to see Miracle Molly again. I do hope we get to see the Insanity Collective again, and Master Wise and all of them. Um, I really liked how Poison Ivy just basically in Omega, in Fear State Omega, was like, here's the thing, Gardner. What you did without my knowledge, permission, and you took a part of my mind and you messed with me. And she stood up for herself, and I really loved that, because I actually, once I knew what was happening, because of the Gardner secret file story, I was basically saying, they're like, okay, so basically anything that's happened in regards to Poison Ivy at this point is her fault. Right? Right? Okay, guys. So anything involving Poison Ivy was actually some really strong shit involving the story. Anything involving the Catwoman part of the story was really strong, probably because of the writing. The Nightwing stuff, really strong, really strong. It felt like that there were elements of the main title that were being phoned in. And I don't know why. Um, Maybe they tried really hard. Um, Let me tell you the art though. The Jorge Jimenez in the main title, one of my faves. One of my faves. One of mine. I loved some of that. I loved some of that. To be completely honest with you, loved it. Okay, loved it, loved it, loved it. Um, oh golly, we're almost to an hour here. We are at an hour. Crap. Okay, so that's the parts that made me cheer. The parts that made me facepalm here. In retrospect, here, one, I've mentioned this. That we were promised certain things like a major Scarecrow story, and yes, Scarecrow was involved, but was not really the main bad, in my opinion, the way it was written. Um, Another major thing that made me completely and totally facepalm. What in the ever loving gods and goddesses? What in Hera? Okay? Good God. What? What would make Batman take off his cowl in front of Miracle Molly? What? What? Because legit, Batman could show her what he was seeing. Batman could still do his little monologue and not reveal to, yeah, okay, I like Molly. I like Molly. Okay, I like Miracle Molly. Technically, she's not a part of the Bat family. I don't even think Harley Quinn knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. She don't even know. Okay? Yeah, so like the immediate Bat family knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. Okay, cool. Alright, got it. Harley Quinn doesn't even know that Bruce Wayne's Batman. As far as I know, she doesn't even know. And she is a member of the Bat family. So you want to tell me that Batman is going to make the decision to take off his mother effing cowl in front of Miracle Molly because he thinks it's going to make him seem more sincere? Dude, do your whole monologue, but keep the fucking cowl on. Keep it on. God, she now knows who you are, dude. She knows who you are, and she's in jail. She's in jail. She's in jail, and she knows who you are. Gee, great move, Batman. Jeez. Are we not supposed to think of this stuff? Because I definitely, the moment I saw that, she's in jail now. She's in jail. And she knows who Batman is. Yeah. Okay. How about nobody mentioning, hey, guys, where's Jason? You think he's okay? Okay, of course, if you are down with the Gotham titles, you know exactly where Jason Todd is. You know. You know. But if you're not down with all the Gotham titles like I am, well, most, maybe minus one or two Gotham titles like I am, if you're not, then you're basically sitting there like, man, does anybody actually give a flying horse shit like how, like, Red Hood's doing? Like, how's Jason? Where's Jason? Is he okay? What's going on? Where is he? Nobody makes any gosh darn mention of Jason Todd whatsoever. Now, like I said, if you read almost all of the Gotham titles like I do, you know exactly where Jason Todd is. He is been tapped to lead a task force of zombied former villains for the maybe greater good. Who knows? He's still trying to figure that out. If you're reading it, yeah, you know what I mean. He's still trying to figure that out, and just trying to keep everything from going completely bonkers. Alrighty, so that is everything that made me go, what? So let's go ahead and wind this down. I want to talk to you about the last thing I want to talk to you about is if we read this event and it's, definitely done, who was the ultimate Fear State MVP? So I think we have 4 major contestants here. Okay? 4 major contestants here. 1, Batman. Okay. I'm gonna tell you about who is not the Fear State MVP first. Then I'm gonna tell you, the winners up. The winners up, the runners up here. I'm gonna tell you about them first. Then I'm gonna tell you about who's actually, in my opinion, the Fear State MVP and why. So here we go. 1, not the MVP, but runner-up, Batman. Okay, so Batman and, a few other people are actually the one going out there and taking, all the hits, okay? He's the one fighting Peacekeeper 1. He's the one that is, doing all that jazz, right? He's the one getting, finding people to get Miracle Molly to where she needs to be. He's the one doing that. Okay? He's the one taking all these hits. Now, granted, you have other characters that are taking hits and obviously fighting and doing all that jazz, but you know what? I think the person that's got the most bruises, that, yeah, it's Batman. It's Batman, okay? But still, not the MVP. Next runner-up. 1, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl Prime, Oracle. Now, she is not the MVP, though she is very important to the overall, progression of the entire story. I mean, from moment Jump Street, okay? Barbara Gordon has Oracle attacked and hacked. And she has to figure out, well, what the heck am I going to do now to keep everyone together? Keep everyone on their shit. And you know what? She pulls it off. She pulls it off and somehow gets it together, figures it out. She destroys her own programs. She puts on the Batgirl suit, even despite the idea that she really shouldn't be wearing the Batgirl suit. She really shouldn't be out there doing fully Batgirl things because, as we know already, that there was a lot of damage done to her during the Joker War that made it so that she probably really should limit, because she should limit her time as Batgirl, due to the fact that even though she is walking, even though she is not in a wheelchair anymore, Barbara Gordon is still disabled. Okay. You don't have to look disabled to be disabled. This is the truth. Okay. So yes, Barbara Gordon, major mind and major badass. Okay. She is still a runner-up because there are 2 people, 2 characters, and I know what y'all are going to say when I tell you who they are, but I have the receipts to back this up. Okay? I know y'all are going to sit there and be like, oh, gee, yeah, of course, Carrie picked them. Of course, the officially unofficial geek pick them to be the MVP, of course. I have my reasons, guys. I have my reasons. And I'm going to tell you one thing. This is my show. That's it. This is my show. This is my show. And the only opinion that matters in this video, mine. And that opinion is the real MVPs. Because it's two women. The true and real MVPs of Batman Fear State are Catwoman and Harley Quinn. I'm going to pause because you should be clapping right now. Catwoman, Harley Quinn. Woo! Yeah! Catwoman and Harley Quinn, everybody. And it's not just because I love Harley Quinn and I love Catwoman, which I know y'all are thinking that. Those of you that don't have that aren't clapping right now, yeah, y'all, here's why. How do you fight hate, fear? Hate and fear. So this thing is called fear state. Okay? How do you ultimately fight fear and hate? With hope and with love. And these two women, their motivations in their lives, in everything that they do within fear state, even before, leading up to fear state. Their motivations, their actions behind their motivations behind their actions, all come from a place of hope and love. You have Catwoman, who is trying to find herself, and you have Harley Quinn, who is also trying to find herself and her place in this world as well, just like Catwoman is. So you have two women trying to reconcile who they were with who they are and who they could be, who they want to be. Trying to reconcile, is it possible? Is it possible to look at the world and look in the mirror and see what I want to see? And is it possible that despite the whole goddamn world around them, that they can look in the mirror and despite all of it, see that in themselves? See themselves worthy of also receiving that hope, that understanding, that love from Gotham, from Alleytown, having to do with Catwoman, from her strays, finding that strength within herself, for Catwoman to understand and accept things in her life that are good, for Harley Quinn having the strength within herself to move forward and do the right thing because that's what she really wants to do, having the ability to tell the difference between what serves them and what doesn't serve them, having the ability to take these two different groups of people under their wing. You have the strays with Catwoman. You have the former clowns looking for redemption with Harley Quinn, to bring these people under their wing together and do what they believe is right, just, and in love, to give these people that don't have a lot else the hope and love they need. When you have Catwoman, who does truly love her city, does truly love Batman, Bruce Wayne, doing what she can to help him, along with everything she's doing to help her strays, to help Alleytown. When you have Catwoman doing all these things, Selina doing all these things to put herself in a position where she knows she is worthy of that love and acceptance, and that she can be a part of that because of who she is, and doing everything she does in this whole run, this whole event, in honor of that. When you have Harley Quinn, who has been on this road to redemption where it's not always smooth, where she's constantly questioning herself because of her reputation, well-deserved reputation, of being the ultimate Joker henchman, a murderer, a bad guy, a villain. Putting herself in the position where not a lot of people have a lot of faith in Harley Quinn, but yet she has come together with these people, with Kevin, with the rest of the clowns that are looking for redemption, the former Joker henchmen looking for redemption. She's taking them under her wing. She's like, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't have all the answers, but we can do it together because I'm going to care. And then you have her continuing on that process and continuing it, trying to do what she thinks is best and right to help her beloved city, Gotham, whether they believe she loves them or not. And ultimately, her love for Pamela Isley, for Poison Ivy, peppering everything she does. Because all she needs to do is do everything she can to make her beloved Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, whole again, to save Gotham. If not for the efforts of Selina Kyle throughout this run of Catwoman, rescuing this aspect of this part of Poison Ivy, keeping her safe, making promises to Bruce, making promises to her strays, loving all these things. If not for her making this commitment to do that, Harley Quinn would not have been able to reunite the two halves of Poison Ivy back into one. Poison Ivy, Queen Ivy, and Poison Ivy would not be reunited back into one. Therefore, the anger Poison Ivy felt just prior to being reunited because of Catwoman and Harley Quinn ultimately could have destroyed that entire city within minutes, regardless of what was going on above ground with Batman and Molly. If Poison Ivy had not been rejoined and thus healed the child that was injured, thus sending her pheromones throughout Gotham City to calm everyone. And thus, the knowledge being there that she had done that other aspects were happening, that people were choosing, making the right decisions. People were winning. Love was winning. Hope was winning. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for her being able to do that, for reuniting with that part of her personality, and for that word getting out there, Molly would have pressed the button. So it's for those reasons, the two characters that I believe are the MVPs truly of Fear State, regardless of any other thing that you can feel or think about the entire event as a whole. You know, believe me, we've talked about it, guys. We've talked about it. The true MVPs of Fear State are Catwoman and Harley Quinn, because without them, it would have been no man's land. Because they chose to fight fear and hate with hope and love. That's it. So guys, I really hope that's about all that I have for you guys here. I mean, the extra special chronological order down in the description of what I believe is the proper chronological order of Fear State. That's going to be down in the description. I really hope that if you guys stuck with me this whole time, I hope you really like my point of view here. I hope that it's giving you something to think about. I hope maybe it's giving you something, maybe there's something I mentioned that makes you like Fear State more. Maybe there's something I mentioned that makes you question what happened in Fear State more. I really hope when it comes right down to it that what you take away, I've been talking too much, what you take away from Fear State, for all its flaws and good parts, that people, no matter what, have the ability to hope and love in the face of danger and fear. And that hope and love should, if enough people band together to provide it, should win overall. And that's like a really good thing to think about, especially in the last couple of years. Hope and love overcoming fear and hate. So go out there, have some hope. Go out there, feel the love. This has been the officially unofficial geek, Fear State, from Alpha to Omega and everything in between. I'm Carrie Quinn. I hope if you've made it this far, you've enjoyed this program. And if you're new here, subscribe, please. Like, comment, let me know you thought of Fear State, and go out there and have some hope. Feel the love. And until next time, I'll be seeing ya. Bye.